Today's guest has coached some of the greatest goalkeepers in football history. Schmeichel, Van der Sar, De Gea, Hart, it goes on and it goes on. But Eric Steele's story starts far from the bright lights of Old Trafford and Sir Alex Ferguson. From a young lad at Wallsend Boys Club to becoming Manchester United's trusted goalkeeping coach, Eric learned that greatness isn't about talent alone, it's about discipline, communication, and always evolving. In this episode, Eric opens up on what it really takes to develop world-class keepers, how coaching has changed over the decades, and why understanding the person matters just as much as perfecting the technique. There's more than a conversation about saves and clean sheets, but it's a deep dive into mindset, leadership, and the legacy of one of football's finest teachers. I'm not going to lie, I had to contain myself in this episode, and I hope that energy shines through. This is a man who's worked with some of the most amazing footballers and managers in the world. And I had to work really hard to keep this conversation on track because there's a million questions I could have asked Eric that I couldn't get to and stay true to the podcast. One of these days I might take you behind the scenes to what questions I got to ask afterwards as well. But I hope you enjoy this episode, and please share it with your friends and family. If they're a Manchester United fan, they will know this guy extremely well. He needs no introduction. Enjoy. Hello, welcome to this month's episode of the EvoGK podcast, Catching Up. Today I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by former Manchester United goalkeeping coach Eric Steele. Eric, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here.
Eric's football journey began in northeast of England, born in Wallsend, 1950. Say that quietly. And he carved out a solid playing career as a goalkeeper, starting at Newcastle United's youth setup, really making his mark at Peterborough, where he held a club record for consecutive appearances, and then spells at Brighton and Hove Albion, Watford, Derby County, and others. But what really makes Eric especially fascinating for our discussion today is his transformation into one of the most respected goalkeeping coaches in the game. After hanging up his gloves in around 1988, he set up his own specialist coaching service, travelling and working internationally, before securing roles at elite clubs like Aston Villa, Man City, and in particular, Man United, where he joined as first-team goalkeeping coach in 2008. Alongside his club work since 2015, he's been engaged by the English Football Association, working with the next generation of national team goalkeepers. In short, we have someone on the show who immediately knows the player-to-coach journey, has operated at the highest levels of the game, and brings both practical hands-on experience and strategic thinking about how goalkeepers develop, perform, and evolve. That is some write-up, Eric. I'm not going to lie, I'm excited.
Some intro. Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm puffing my chest there after hearing that. I better make sure the answers I'm going to give you are going to match what you've just told everybody. So, yeah. No, looking forward to it. Very good.
It's fantastic. Before we get into anything in too much depth, I want to know, same as I asked Ian and John in our first two episodes, who was your goalkeeping hero growing up?
I had two heroes. Number one, when I was a young goalkeeper trying to take balls at everybody on Tynemouth, Whitley Bay Beach, that's how my mum knew I was going to be a goalkeeper. I didn't kick the ball. I used to always run over, grab it, and literally carry it like goalkeepers do. So I knew then, my mum says, you're going to be a goalkeeper. I knew that. So by the time I got to 11 years of age, and this is just before I went to Wallsend Boys Club, which I'm sure we'll touch on, my hero then was Lev Yashin, who was a Russian goalkeeper called the Cat, all dressed in black, 66 World Cup. My mum's working away, my dad's working away, and I can't remember yet who got the tickets, but actually Russia played at Roker Park, the old Sunderland Stadium.
Yeah.
And I got the tickets and I went, and it was the old-fashioned used to stand then. I just remember going, and he was well known for the total black, short, sock top. And I still to this day remember the free kick. It went round the wall and everybody around me went goal. And then all of a sudden this leap. And it was like a puma. It was like a black puma. Two hands. And he parried the ball like Peter Schmeichel. And it didn't go for a corner. It went for a throw-in. And that stuck in my mind. So he was, bless his heart, he's no longer with us. He was my first hero. My second hero through playing and then coaching was Gordon Banks, who in the 66 World Cup, obviously, massive game, played a part in us getting there. But also since then, I've met him 2 or 3 times. He's no longer with us. He actually guested on the FA conference that we used to have, the goalkeeping conference in St George's, and he was unbelievable. I still remember him now talking about the save, 1970, Guadalajara, the great save from Pele.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually demonstrates it on the stage, and he's in a full suit, collar and tie, and he's moving across the stage. It was absolutely the same as 1970. And I just looked and went, wow. Met him, went to his funeral, the respect, the people that had travelled, that guy. So yeah, that's really my 2 heroes that I've had. And a lot of the actual techniques that I look at, I still look at Banks and watch the footage that I've managed to get. So that when I do hand over individual techniques or how they should adapt their game, a lot of it is based on Gordon Banks.
That's fascinating. That is incredibly detailed, and I love it. And I think there's definitely some stuff that I want to come back to in a few moments. But you mentioned it there earlier, Wallsend Boys. So you came up through Wallsend, which is, let's be honest, it's a feeder area for Newcastle United and lots of other clubs in the area. What was it like kind of learning your trade there as a young keeper back in the day?
Absolutely. When you look back, it not only gave you... So I'm actually going to the Boys Club while I'm up. I'm going on Tuesday to meet with the gentleman who has been behind over the last 50-odd years, Peter Kirtley. He is scouted for Newcastle, but he's also looked at the Boys Club. He's seen it develop, along with Steve Dale, the chairman. And they have now been responsible for 97 players in the 50-odd years have actually gone into pro football and earned pro contracts. So I was one of the first.
Mm-hmm.
I signed for Newcastle in 1972. But since then, there's 96 have followed that. So what that gave was, initially, when you went to the Boys Club, it wasn't just football. It was going, you get home from school, homework, then you go off to Wallsend Boys Club and you play table tennis or you'd play billiards, whatever. But you'd train as well. We actually did train, one of the few clubs in the area that we trained twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
We were taught discipline. We were taught standards. So like you were saying, the boys listening to this, the importance of, if you book table tennis at 6 o'clock and you turn up at 1 minute past, you don't get on the table tennis table.
Yeah.
Don't be late. As the great man that we're going to come on to, Sir Alex used to say, I'd rather you're 20 minutes early than 2 minutes late. And he's spot on. So these were life lessons that I learned. Be on time, be respectful. We always shake hands at the end of a game, whether we'd won, lost or draw. And this was again through a lot of the coaches and the staff that were there. Dave Beardall, who's not longer with us, he was the Boys Club manager and ran it. So there was it was a place where you could feel safe, secure, but boy, you knew if you stepped out of line, you didn't play. If you were late, you didn't play.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really important. So yeah, I went to Burnside High School, stayed and did A-levels, worked my way through with Wallsend Boys Club, and then eventually I went and I was playing reserve football for Newcastle United when I was 16, 17 at St James's Park.
Amazing.
And it was, again, that was all part of upgrades, but also it was just another chapter that went, the importance of working, training, being prepared for games, being organised, being disciplined. That was really drilled into you. Then eventually I started on the pro game when I was 18 and then carried on.
What was it like when you first made that switch and you got into the pro team and you walked out in front of a full crowd?
I think I was blessed because, again, going back, there'll not be many who remember this, but when you used to play at Newcastle, if you played first team on a Saturday and their first team were away, the reserve team was in the Central League as it was then. You'd play on St James's Park. So I played in front of 6 hours at school, studying A-level, playing for the school in the morning, going playing in the afternoon for Newcastle Reserve. So I played about 14, 15 games. I played against people, Bobby Charlton returning from injury, Colin Bell. And I'm playing, but there was 4,000 or 5,000 people. So you don't have that now because you play 21s football, 23s, where you're playing and there's 3 men and a dog and the coaching staff. Still a great environment on these fabulous pitches. But that upbringing So I think I played about nearly 15, 20 games in the Central League. So that was unbelievable grounding for me. So that you go away, and I went away to Stoke City, and again, a Gordon Banks story. I've been picked up from school. I've got permission to go. I get to Stoke. I've got my boots. What do I forget? My gloves. So I always remember, I said to the, we didn't have kit men then. The physio used to do everything.
Yeah.
And I said to the physio, I've rushed out of school, I've forgotten the glove. Guess who's happened to be the number one goalkeeper there? Gordon Banks. So off they go. They come back 10 minutes later, said, oh, we've got a pair of Gordon Banks, the green cotton gloves. You're welcome to have them, son. I went, welcome to have? I didn't want to wear them, but I did.
Never going to get washed.
Never met them. They didn't get washed from the actual game. And I still, to this day, I left them with my dad, and I still don't know where they are. But the memory of actually getting known it was Gordon Banks's. But that was the fact that you were playing. Gordon Banks had gone to watch the game. Yeah. So that's the way the game was then.
Yeah.
We've got too many tiers at times now. But the actual, if you played first team, brilliant. They didn't have 7 subs, 9 subs then. 1 sub, that was it. Mm-hmm. So these were all part of the upbringing that you needed to have to appreciate when you did get pro and you did get in that first team dressing room. That was just the start.
Yeah. I think that's the key that I hear from a lot of the coaches that we've interviewed so far is you've got to go through the rough times to appreciate the good, right? Like nobody gets gifted that pro contract, nobody gets gifted game time. You've got to work for everything. But when you do, and you've gone through all of that, then the rough times that you've been through help you appreciate what's coming.
Paul, sometimes you're going to fail before you succeed. But what you do with lessons, did you learn? Are you prepared to learn the lessons from when you failed? I don't know a footballer yet that hasn't failed in some capacity.
Yeah.
Whether he's missed a tackle, whether he's handballed accidentally, missed a chance from 3 yards, all the various excuses will hear. Oh, yeah, I miscued. Oh, yeah, the wind blew it the other way. At the end of it, sometimes it doesn't do any harm. Yeah. As long as it's part of your learning process, and that's both as a player and as a coach.
Yeah. So then I guess, when we look at what you talk about, the level of professionalism that you were taught at Wallsend Boys Club, then do you think that that's kind of, we talked at the beginning about, you've got the record for the consecutive number of appearances and you racked up hundreds of appearances as a player. Do you think that's what instilled that level of dependability for you, that kind of there was nothing going to stop you from playing week in, week out, and you were going to, I guess, look after yourself in order to make sure that you could do that, right?
Without a doubt. Part of being a professional, I do it now where I go into clubs and I'm helping people as a consultant, and I'll say, you're having issues with certain players, tell me what to do. Ask them to spell professional, which some of them can't. When they can't spell professional, ask them what that means to them. And it's amazing the answers you get. What you're looking for is what you would expect from your parents, where they'd say, what do you think? Being on time, never late for meeting, turn up smart, be prepared to listen, be prepared to ask questions. All the things that we put into that. So I was given that. So what I've done is lessons learned again from when I literally moved from playing into coaching, which a lot of the lessons I had as a player I carried on into coaching. And that's part of it, where I always say to the coaches, don't be afraid to ask the player. Yeah. How do you feel? What do you think you need more of? What went wrong last week? You haven't got any faults. We've got areas to improve. Yeah, all of a sudden. So if again, I went away and learned psychology, which I think is important, especially for goalkeepers, but also for goalkeeper coaches, because the role in the last 5-6 years has totally changed.
With that in mind then, what was it that made you consider the leap from playing to coaching? Because whilst everybody retires at some point, not everybody decides to take the leap into coaching, and lots of other people go off and do all sorts of interesting ventures.
Somebody told me, and I still to this day, I think it was the youth coach at Newcastle when I was there. He was a winger, ex-player, Jeff Allen. And he actually said to me, I played for his youth team when we won the Northern Intermediate League, where Sunderland were playing at Middlesbrough, Sheffield. So it was basically in and around the north of England. And he actually said to me, do you know what, Steele? He says, if you don't turn pro, I'll tell you what's going to help you. Be a coach as well. I think it'll help your game. It'll improve your game. And I did. So I went off. Then he had like a prelim. And I went to Durham College when I signed pro, and I went and did. And there was no goalkeeping courses then. It was purely outfield. And I did. I went on that. And it's something that I'll actually advise a lot of goalkeepers, players to do. Don't wait till you're 34, 35 and go, I should have done that, coach. I should have done the A license, should have done the B. So that really was sound advice. That did help me. And I've known other goalkeepers where I've said, go and do exactly what I was told to do. And that's helped. So I think you need now as a goalkeeper, it's not enough just to keep the ball out of the net, even though that is still the most important job. But you have to understand the game. And I think as a coach, if you're playing and coaching, I think you'll definitely understand and you'll value the game more.
And I guess there's a certain amount of self-belief in there as well, because it's not everybody believes. There's a lot of a lot of imposter syndrome that sits in there and goes, well, why would anybody want to listen to me? You know, you're talking to a young 22, 23-year-old goalkeeper. I've achieved nothing yet. Why would I want to be a coach? What would your answer be to them?
What you have to have is you have to gain the knowledge and the experience. So a bit like I've said to a lot of the outfield coaches, if you start having to go goalkeeper coaches, just remember, we go and do your B license outfield, then we do the B license goalkeeper. We then do the A license outfield, and then we do the A license goalkeeper. How many goalkeeping courses, badges have you been on? The answer always is no. Yeah, but you're just goalkeeper. They're just goalkeeper coaches. So what I always say to the coaches that I've helped through the FA system, so anybody who's been in the FA system will always get full support from me. So if somebody rings me and I get nearly always in the January or the summer window, Steele, I need a goalkeeper. Steele, I need a coach. What level? He might be YDP, youth development phase, professional period. Okay. Very quickly, I just run down the people that I've worked with. Even though I've been retired 3-4 years, I still know where they are. Yeah. So what I always say to them is what you have to be prepared for is when you are asked your opinion, make sure you've got one. And it doesn't necessarily, so it's no good just saying, yes, Paul, I agree with that. No, Paul, you've got to put some reasoning behind that. That's the way you develop. So if you don't understand the game, go and learn it. If you don't understand enough about psychology, go and do an online course. If you don't know enough about weightlifting, go and do the bowler course. So which I did. So then when sports science comes in and the fitness coaches, I know exactly what I want when I say I want Olympic lifts done. I want a clean. I want a snatch. Snatch is important for the goalkeepers. Why? Because they've got to have the reach for that top corner. What's behind it? Well, you make the athlete in the gym, you make the goalkeeper on the grass. Yeah, that hasn't changed. What has changed is the amount of people that have got into sports science now from all different domains, and you look and go, wow, experience that they've got. But again, they understand the game. Yeah. So I keep saying to coaches, why did you do that warm-up when it or no relationship to the actual session you just coached? So your preparation has to be thorough. Do you plan? Do you do the coaching? Biggest thing in coaching, do you review? Excuse me, a lot of them don't.
And I guess then with that in mind, you've worked with, and we haven't really got into this yet in the intro, but you've worked with some of the biggest names in football, certainly in goalkeeping. So Van der Sar, Edit, David De Gea, Ben Foster, Peter Schmeichel, for crying out loud. Like the boy fan in me sitting here, just like I've got so many questions that I could literally keep you here all night asking questions about even just Schmeichel on his own. One of my boyhood heroes, as we were discussing before the podcast. But in your mind, what separates the truly world class elite from really good goalkeepers that we might see every day? What separates that? What's that extra level?
Well, there's the good and the great. And the greats, they have something special. So I was fortunate enough to work with Peter, Edwin van der Sar, De Gea. So Peter was, as you would see, if he walked in this room now, he's got a physical presence. Everybody thinks his shoulders, he deliberately walks with his shoulder. No, he was born that way. And bear in mind, if you actually have a look at Peter and look at some of the documentaries that have been done, everybody says about now the growth. Oh, my boy's going to be, my granddad was 6'4". Good, yeah. His dad was only 6'2", yeah. Okay. Now, there's various ways you can do now, fine, medically, to give you a really good 98% correct, which I used at Man United to say to 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds, we're going to do this procedure. This will give us an idea, because in the end, if you get to 15, we don't want to disappoint you and hurt you. you're better off going off at 13 and go and learn another sport.
Yeah.
But Peter had this unbelievable presence about him, and he was physical, but he also was, because he was the one that always berated, had the right go in. He'd make the save and it'd be somebody else's fault because they didn't stop the cross coming in, or Steve Bruce would get stick because he hadn't marked the attacker. And so Steve Bruce would tell us, but that's your job to save it anyway, Peter. But everything he did was for the benefit of the team. Everybody thought it was all about him. It wasn't. That was the show. The deep down Peter Schmeichel was, he knew how to be a major part of that team. Physical presence, the actual talking that he would do. When I was with him at Villa, I never realised till I got in the dressing room, he went round the back four as we played then. He made them feel $1 million. And then they knew, if anything gets past you, I'll be there.
Yeah.
So he used to say, and we had a classic moment. We had him as a guest on the FA's conference, goalkeeping conference, St George's. And it's been going well, and he's presented everything else. He said, we'll now take questions from the floor. So he's answered a few about, so when you started, you played the handball, this was the big shape, which they call now the X, which is ridiculous. But it was actually, this is the big shape. He learned that in handball. He transferred that to his goalkeeping. So then somebody turned and said, Peter, question. How did you deal with mistakes? So there was, and there's a pause, Paul.
Yeah.
Pause for like 5 seconds. Went, I didn't make mistakes. You had 350 people in the order went exactly the same as you. Didn't make a mistake. No. And in the end, that was the confidence and assurance that he had. And he had that special ability, and he did make unbelievable saves. Edwin was the gentleman on and off the field. And his phrase was always the same, I want to be the calmest man on the field. He was also the calmest man off the field. Total respect. When I used to see the reaction of other goalkeepers and players end the game to go and shake hands with Van der Sar, it was a total respect. And he was an all-round goalkeeper. Unbelievable. Everybody would know he was 15 before he became a goalkeeper. He was at Ajax. He was a centre-half. Yeah. Wow. Did that help him in the way he played? Because he was the one out of the three that had this unbelievable ability to be the calmest man on the field when the ball came back. So like now, where we're all talking about the keepers have to have this and that, Edwin was a natural. But he also had this presence about him that would calm, and he'd make saves in a really calm way. He'd get up, make the save. He might probably Patrice Emma would walk past and go, save, whatever. It would be very gentle. Next thing would be, right, we've got to deal with the corner. Then we go to David. David was, obviously, I helped bring him in under Sir Alex, who always believed in young players. He'd never really brought a young goalkeeper in at 19, 20 years of age. But we brought him in because we knew he was a supreme talent. And I watched him 17 times live over 18 months. And we needed to have somebody that was going to follow Van der Sar. And people forget this. What a job that was. What a task. Yeah. What a task for the poor person that had to take over from Peter Schmeichel in 1999.
Huge shoes to fill, yeah.
15 goalkeepers they used before they brought Edwin in 2004. Edwin went 2004 to 2011, then David came in. David straight away had a massive shoes and gloves to fill Edwin van der Sar. His hero, which I never knew, was David's hero was Peter Schmeichel. And I only found out when I was doing the special presentation, and actually spoke to his teacher in Spain, because I'd learned Spanish knowing he was coming in. Then we got the same professor to teach him English, which was an absolute scream, because we used to have an agreement once a month. We'd go out for a meal, and he would have to order his meal in English, and I had to order my meal in Spanish. We had the professor there. Oh, it was chaos. But it was good. And he had all of this to contend with. He couldn't drive when he came to Manchester. So he took all of that on. Yes, it was a tough start, but we knew that. But the great man had every confidence. And we went to, always remember, we went to Chelsea, early December. Juan Mata, who was a really good friend of his in the Spanish national, put the ball over the top of the wall, 3 steps, top hand, pushes it out. We draw the game 3-3. We're walking down the tunnel. And Sir Alex says, Steele, we've got a goalkeeper. And that was the beginning So then he won everything at Man United bar Champions League, 550 games. So he was a special talent. But again, calm, nothing fazed him. Nothing. And that's what
Calm
the
in the
greats
storm.
do. That's what the greats do.
So, you've been noted as saying that it was an education working with Edwin at Man United. Is that kind of how did that shape how you coached future goalkeepers, having worked with him in that time when he was just kind of coming through and then through to his peak? What lessons did you take for the younger keepers from that?
I think probably the most successful part of was I was a good listener as a coach, which I always say to people, listen. And I've kept diaries. I've got in my loft at home, I've got diaries. I've got every session I coached over 40 years. And I've transferred some to computer, which you can do now. As such. But what I've always believed in, that you have to, don't be afraid to ask. I said it earlier, don't be afraid to ask. And the best thing I did was, when I was at Derby, when I started there, I had Mark Poom and Lee Grant, who's now manager of Huddersfield, Lee Camp, who went on to make record appearances. I had him as 11-year-old, putting him in the team. Then I left there and I went to Aston Villa. And I've got Peter and I've got Thomas Sorensen. But the one thing that it gave me is that experience of working under Jim Smith, Steve McLaren. Then I went to Villa and worked with John Gregory, who I played with at Brighton and Derby. And then I went from there to Man City with Sven Goran. So by the time I got to United, thank goodness, I'd been through 3 different real terrific coaches, man management people. And I don't think I would have had as much success in my coaching career if I hadn't listened and learned through that process. So I'll go back to it. I made a mistake, but the one thing I learned, and Peter always remembers this, my first meeting with Peter, as I turned and I said to him, what do you need? Oh my God, you're the first coach that's ever asked me. My old coach always say, why do you open your legs and your arms and you come like this? And I said, no, what can I do? I want to know, what do you need? And he was coming to an end of a career. So he needed his body being managed. So we went through stuff and said, yeah, no, we can do that. We can do it post. There's no need for you sometimes to be out. You could have them on in the gym, where you're on a stretch program, whatever, with the physios. And that was why, and that really, I carried that through to my Man City days when I worked with Joe Hart and Kasper Schmeichel. Very similar. So Joe, you're 20 now. Kasper's 20. You're 19. What do you need? Steele, I just want to keep training. I just love training. Joe would train from morning till night.
Yeah.
So you had to calm him down. Kasper, as I said, he wanted certain things within training that you had to provide. So I was lucky that, again, because I'd been told to coach early, I had a lot of them lessons put into me when I was 18, 20, and I was playing at the same time. So that was the big, I think that people, and I've been asked this before, and people said to me, so do you think you're a better coach than you were a goalkeeper? And I go, you're probably right. So as much as I've won 6 promotions, played for my country, thoroughly enjoyed my playing career, but when I look at what I did and achieved, I mean, football's given me, I've been fortunate to play in a sport that's given me a living for 52 years. And I've been proud of that. I've been able to pay to stay fit. Yeah. So I get people moaning about, give over. People would give, the people that come into now, the Stadium of Light, the people go into the San Siro, the North, St. James's Park, they would give anything to have a year, a month, what a lot of the professional footballers have. So I never took it for granted. And I always looked upon it as, and somebody said to me, he asked me earlier, the answer to the question was somebody who was a gentleman called Alan Hodgkinson, who played for Sheffield United, England. He found Schmeichel for Sir Alex. He also helped me find De Gea. And he played for Sheffield United, England, not the biggest, 5'10". So he got told many, many times, you're not big enough. He just turned out with his good Yorkshire accent and go, yeah, but I'm going to be good enough. And he was. Now, he was my first real goalkeeping coach, 25. I played over 200 games before I got a proper coach. I had great help in the boys' club, but they literally have a book under their arm, open the book and go, right, we're going to do, or at least to try. This was Peter Kirtley again.
Yeah.
And I valued that he actually took that time, and it was Alan Wade. Nobody had, that was the only book you could get then. Now you can go online, you can get whatever you want. from anywhere in the world. But somebody then, a good friend of mine, turned and said, "Do you know what?" He said, "You'd make a really good coach." He said, "But specialise." So I never wanted to be a manager. And that was really very much my way. I've still worked as assistant, no problem at all. But at the time, somebody told me at 25, 26, when I was working with Alan, he went, "Steele, you'd make a great coach. Because eventually we're going to win. We're going to be full-time." So end of the 90s, we enter 2000. That's when the full-time coaches start to come in.
I love it. I love it. There's just there's so many questions I could ask. One story I do want to hear though. Ben Foster and an iPod.
Yeah.
It's the early Jordan Pickford, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. What happened?
Right. So we're at Man United, and we had something I'd never experienced till I got to Man United. We had a rotation system in my first year, 2008, 2009 season, because we had Edwin van der Sar, Ben Foster, Thomas Kuhn. Ben Foster had been away, been on loan, done really well, was playing for England. So he was playing something like 16 to 20 games, because then Man United, the way they were, and at the moment it's not that way, we're hoping they're going to get back to that. You would expect to be a 65, 70 game season. There's no way we were going to ask Edwin at his age to play. So we used to actually, something I'd never done, Paul. So I would go into Sir Alex's office always the first Monday of the month, 7 o'clock in the morning. Walk in and he'd have the flip charts and he'd pick the team for every game we've got that month. So he'd turn it to me and my job was to give an opinion when asked, as I said. His job was to make the big decisions. That's why he got the big book.
Yeah.
But he'd turn and say, "Steele, we're going to be playing Everton. Who do you think you will play?" "I'd play Kuzak there or Foster, they'd be fine." "Right, okay, well, now what about midweek?" "Well, we're playing Porto away. I'm going to play Ronaldo through the middle. Nobody else knows." "Yeah, you knew. Play Edwin, because we might have to take the sting out of the game. They're going to come at us." So we went through all that. But Ben played with Kuzak games as well as the Carling Cup games. So Ben gets to Wembley against Spurs. And as we did, my preparation was always prepared to say, right, if it goes to penalties, don't worry. What we did then was, now they can have a computer sitting in the dugout, 2 of them, one either end in the dugout areas now. At the time, no, you weren't allowed that. So all we did was, I sat down with the analysts, we went through, and we said, right, this is going to be the penalty takers. We need to get ready. I said, "Tell you what then, I'm not going to be able to grab you if you're going to be up the top in the director's box where you're looking after all the filming of it, because it didn't matter whether it was Sky, BBC, whatever, we'd still have our own cameras in." So I said, "No problem." I said, "Tell you what we'll do, we'll get the penalties." So we worked through, we'd put them all on the iPod. So what people realise, we're getting a 0-0 full time. So at full time, we get a break before we go into the extra time. It was then I went to Ben and said, "Ben, have a look now at the penalties." So I always remember Edwin was in the tunnel at Wembley with me. And he was there going, "Steele, yeah, I like that. So we're on the iPod and I said to Ben, go and have 2 minutes. The referee said it's 3 minutes before we start extra time. So he went off, looked at them all. Get to the end of the game, of which he won man of the match. And Capella, actually the England manager, gave him the man of the match trophy. But what happened was we got to the penalties. And one of the ones that Jamie O'Hara, who's on Sky every other day now, I'd seen him play for the under-21s 10 days earlier. And I said to Ben, I said, "Tell you what, start on the iPod. Jamie O'Hara, if he takes the penalty, will go to your right." That's the only one you got to remember. Brilliant. Getting the penalty shootout. Jamie O'Hara comes up, left-footed. Ben goes, bang. Win the Carling Cup. They go mad. Next day, Tottenham are going mad. It's illegal. They appeal to the FA. They said to the FA, "Are you sure this is illegal?" There was no direction. So I got known as the iPod King. And then people tried to knock me down and said, "What are you doing? That's cheating." And I said, "How's it cheating? What I'm doing is I can't take a big computer." So it was the iPod. And I've still got the shirt in my study at home to Steele from Ben Foster, the iPod King, signed Ben. Amazing. And that really, it was 2-3 weeks. You go, grow up, get on with it. But when you look now, crikey me, they put things on the bottles, they put things on their wrists. The girls tend to want to do it on their wrists or their arms.
Yeah.
Jordan, brilliant, puts him on his water bottle. If it does the job, it does the job. But that's really now how thorough, and you look at it, nothing. It's like 1%, 2%. It's still about the performance. But that detail might only be 1-2%.
Yeah.
Could be the 1-2% that wins you the Carling Cup.
What did Sir Alex think of all that?
Nobody knew we were doing it. Nobody knew we were doing it. Didn't have a Scooby-Doo. 2-3 days, somebody walked in the press office and said, hey, Steele is getting a stick. What's that for? He's a Geordie, that's why. I said, no, I'm not getting a stick for being a Geordie. Could you imagine the Geordie Scotsman talk about Hadrian's Wall? That used to come up regularly.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I used to say to him, we only built Hadrian's Wall, that was to stop the English thinking about going up. So he used to say, you don't give me a... And in the end, that's what he said. He said, I've never heard of any of that. Never even knew for 3 days. And then press officers said, oh, Steele is getting a bit of flack. He's a Geordie. But in the end, no, we just moved on. And then the game's moved on now.
Yeah.
Where, crikey, me, you can come and watch everything. VAR, which means very average response. In my mind,
I've got no complaints after this weekend, but I can't talk about that.
It's a game killer. I think it's a game killer.
It is. I
really
agree.
do.
I agree.
I feel for fans that...
without going into particulars, we're celebrating the goal. We're obviously, it's 3 o'clock game. We've got it on the radio. We're celebrating the goal. And then all of a sudden, the commentator stops. Like, oh, there's an offside check. There's an offside check. It definitely wasn't offside. Well, we all know. We're all sat at home. We all know. It doesn't matter whether it was offside or it wasn't offside. It's all down to what the computer thinks it is. And all of a sudden, the celebrations have to stop in the house while we all sit and wait for the radio. And then comes back, oh, yeah, it's a goal, it's a goal. And then you're like kind of half celebrating. It's like, yeah, I thought it was a couple of minutes ago. But
And think about when you're in the stadium. Fans don't celebrate as such now because straight away they go, oh, this is a bit dodgy, whatever. And they don't celebrate as they do. We had games last year. The average time, I think, was around 97, 98 minutes, the games of the Premier League last year. Now, that was not why it was set up. When they set it up in America and they trialled it in the MLS, they actually used to have the screen. They used to send the referee straight away. There's a doubt. Straight in the airport, there's a doubt. Go to the screen. We don't. We do that while they go on Stockley Park and they talk through it, they walk through it, everything else. Can't get me in, they need an iPod. They're quick if they had my iPod. And it does, I think it's done nothing for me for the benefit of the game. We've got a great product. Why do we love, everybody in the world loves the Premier League? Because it's so diverse that you can have a result where you can have the bottom team can beat the top team. There's so many different styles, everything else. But the one thing it really is spoiling it at times is the VAR. We've got that off our chest, haven't we?
well, I mean, that's part of it though, right? Like that's part of the changes in the game that you'll have seen from back in the day. And it's...
well, I've seen the changes that have affected goal. 4 seconds. Now we've got 8 seconds for, otherwise you get the corner given against you, right? Yeah, so we've done the back pass rule. We've now got the centre halves in the 18-yard box. We've had the it used to be 4 second rule when I played, and now we're on 8 seconds, and the referee starts counting down.
Yeah.
Then you give a corner away. No, invention of leave the game. The game is what it is, what people want to see.
We could have just enforced the rules that we put in place in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
So, along with having worked with some of the most amazing keepers in the world, you've also, as you've already pointed out, worked with some of the most amazing managers in the world as well. Sir Alex Ferguson, Steve McLaren, many, many others. How did you find that you had to adapt your goalkeeper coaching based on who the manager was? Well, what went on behind the scenes?
Obviously, when you're employed, the first thing I always say, and I advise the coaches to do the same, is I'd go in, whether it be Jim Smith, the bald eagle, when bless his heart, he was at Newcastle, and obviously I worked with him at Derby. Graham Taylor, John Gregory, David O'Leary, Sven Goran. The first conversation I would always have after the interview and I've been given the job was I needed to know what was the philosophy of the head coach. What's your beliefs? How do you want to play the game? What can I do working with the goalkeepers to help the team? So everything was not about the goalkeepers in isolation. It was for me. So my always first port of call was to speak to head coaches. Some were very receptive. Some would say, just get on with the job. You know what you've got to do. Right. But others would say, yeah, I want them involved. So like now, the modern coach, a bit like we've done today, on these HQ sessions for Evo, is that that's what that was about, just to show them how we should interact more with the outfield coaches. Something I had a fantastic 5 years working at Man United, where Sir Alex wasn't involved in the day-to-day sessions. He would always be there, but he left that to his assistant manager, Mick Phelan, his first team coach, Rennie Mullenstein, and myself, sports science, and the doctor. So there was constant meetings on planning, would review in the afternoons. And that really was my philosophy, which again, I was taught very early on in Hodgkinson, back to him. Steele, just find out, what does the manager want? What does the head coach need? Is he going to be very direct? If you watch when Peter played, Peter never played in the era we've got now, where he could, like his sons had to learn how to play. Peter was he was the best counter-attacker in the game, not with his feet, with his ability to throw.
Yeah.
So I always remember when I got to Villa, Graham Taylor took over temporarily for 3 months, and he said, we've got to utilise the best counter-attacking goalkeeper in the world. And it was to do with Peter. And I have got videos of him where he sets up Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Throw, unbelievable. So if you don't find that out from your head coach, that's where your basis of your actual relationships. So I talk to coaches about, you must develop your interpersonal skills, have to go on with your players, your goalkeepers, and the team, but also your interaction with staff is vital, so that we're on the same page. You don't want it whereby the goalkeeper goes, no, we shouldn't play from the back, we need to launch it. No good doing that. Head coach wants to build from the back. Why? Well, we've got Scholes, we've got Michael Carrick, we've got Van Persie. If we hit the ball into him, he's going to chest it, we'll play from there. We can go wide. We can give it to Giggsy on one side, Valencia on the other. So if the throw is on, we throw wide. These are all things that you have to. It doesn't just happen on the easier with ball with good players, even easier with great players.
Yeah.
And I was witness to that when I went to Man United. Oh, yeah. Dear me, simple. Given the simple instructions, they just played.
So then, taking what you've said there, combined with what we were talking about before in the changes in the game, the technology, VAR, and all the new rules and things, how do you think that's affected goalkeepers' mental game, if you like? How do they have to think differently now compared to what they did 10, 15 years ago even?
Good question. They've got to think more. They've got to understand the game. And back to the thread again. If they don't understand the game, they are not going to be able to have the ability to play. Have a look at the breath fresh air clubs in the Premier League in the last 2-3 years. Brighton, Hove Albion, Brentford, Crystal Palace. What have they been asked? Their goalkeepers have been asked. The form that Deservey wanted. He wanted to be able to play. He wanted to be able to vary.
Yeah.
So Jason Steele might be in the team. Jason was very good. If they went to a team where they knew they'd leave space, we'll play Jason Steele today. Next game, they might want to invite the press on, invite the pressure, and we can play. So I think now there's more thought goes into it. It has to be.
Yeah.
And what you have to be then is, as goalkeepers, you have to be mentally stronger to say, yeah, can you handle that? Now, all I ever do is when I'm working with the outfield coaches, I says, I don't mind the fact that, we're going to look to play around, we're going to look to play through into the midfield areas. Shen have done it really, really well. They do it differently at Newcastle because of the goal with Nick Pope. Nick's not as comfortable as playing the short ball, but he's excellent at the throw, as we saw last week against Benfica. He's also excellent at launching the ball out of his hands or off the floor. So again, if you don't understand the strengths, you've then got to work that with the team. Hence the reason why my big push was today to watch the actual session back. I'll watch it. Is that you need to have the goalkeepers involved with the outfield more and more if you want to play that way where you're going to build. So it's a consideration that the head coach has to have with all of his staff, not just with his goalkeeper.
With that then, who would you say has been the most difficult goalkeeper to work with? And I don't mean that in terms of them being difficult as a person, but what's been the biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge? Do you know, I've been lucky. I have been lucky because I've worked with greats, good, really good people, good characters who will go under the radar, but they've still had a really, really good career. I very rarely had problems with goalkeepers because the one thing we have, as you know, there's a union and we do tend to support. I've never been at a club where we used to spend Monday to Friday, if it was a clear week, and I used to always say, okay, Monday, Tuesday is all about what we feel as staff, the goalkeeper, the players need. Fine. Thursday, Friday was about what the goalkeeper needs, but in particular, your number one on the build-up to the game. So we always worked. I worked on that theory for a long, long time. And other coaches, outfield coaches, said, Steele, exactly right. We'll do the shape on a Tuesday. We'll look at it again on the Thursday. But we won't. If you've got the best players, which is what I was lucky enough that I worked with Sir Alex, we worked on the 80-20% rule.
Yeah.
80% was about us. So you can imagine mentally what that does for the players. 20% is about what we'll do when the opposition have got the ball. Now, if you've got that belief, and you instill that within your goalkeepers, and we do spend a lot more time on a one-to-one basis than the outfield coaches. But at Man United, it wouldn't be, if you walked in at 12 o'clock, you'd actually see 4 of the strikers working with a goalkeeper and an outfield coach. I might have the other strikers working on cutbacks. So amazingly, the goalkeepers were getting varied work the whole time because it was planned that way. So I never had, the one that was awkward at the time was Casper when he was just growing up, when he was actually 20 and he was just desperate to play. And he had Joe Hart as competition and Isaacson as competition, the Swedish number one.
Yep.
And he just was so impatient. So nothing gave me more pleasure than when he left City, went to Notts County's Fed, and he won his first medal or so. Different man. Then he goes on to Leicester. Imagine what the pressure he felt with the dad he had.
Yeah.
But then he went to Leicester and he won the league. And you go, wow, in his own right. So
yeah.
I think, again, I look back and I go, very rarely, I can't even think of one. I had a problem with Victor Valdez. I went in for 4 weeks at Middlesbrough to help them out. And Valdez was coming to the end of his career, and he was an argumentative. Yeah, and we had Brad Guzan, Kontopoulos was there, the Greek boy who used to be at Hartlepool. And that was a difficult 4 weeks. Well, I was only there 4 weeks, so I really don't account that. But Valdez knew, and end of the season, he left, he went.
Yeah.
And it was understandable because he'd gone from that serious injury, and his career was starting to go that way. But no, Paul, in all honesty, no, there wasn't one that would handle go big problem.
Yeah. Was the flip that on its head then? Was there a particular goalkeeper who taught you something that you didn't expect?
Oh yeah, they all did. I've never seen a calmness like I saw with Edwin van der Sar. Joe Hart, one of the bravest I've ever seen. Joe used to actually say to people, just hit through me. Go on, try and hit through me. He'd come out one-on-one and go, go and hit through me. Unbelievable, just no fear. Hit the ball wherever. No fear at all. And then you'd get your people like Peter, and he would do things and said, unbelievable. He'd leads away. He's caught across, and I always remember David later and said, what's he doing? And he actually ran out the box on a diagonal, rolled the ball. He could have thrown it, and he actually hit a ball to Darius Vassal on a one-on-one with a defender. And I'm there, and they're all turning to me, Stevie, what's he doing? I said, have a look what he's doing now. He's having a go at Darius Vassal because he didn't make anything of a great opportunity one-on-one. He put the ball wide. So you'd have loads of little stories like that. What always never failed to surprise me was the actual pleasure they got. And I always go back to the Italians were the best. So the greatest one for me, Buffon, who I met.
Yeah.
You watch the Italians.
Yeah.
You watch the Italians. If the defenders make a block, you watch. They're up. Fisting, high fives. Buffon, 20 minutes later, makes an unbelievable save. Cialini, straight over. Well, I've never known anything like it. That was the thing I loved to see.
Yeah.
Edwin, when he made a great decision on an early free kick, set Wayne Rooney through after 25 seconds at Old Trafford. Wayne Rooney went on chest volley. Brad Guzan were 1-0 up after 24 seconds. Turn the camera around. All you see is Patrice Evra running, jumping on Edwin.
Yeah.
And appreciating what he'd done. Rio coming up going, brilliant. Somebody else.
Yeah.
So I think that was one of the nicest parts when you see how the players saw the value in what the goalkeeper did.
Yeah. And I think, my boy looks at the Jordan Pickford, so, when you look at the way, and he emulates him on the pitch, he makes a great save and he's up celebrating, he's trying to rile the crowd if he's under eights. And he's right. trying to rile the crowd up, and I'm like, yeah, that's where, you know, it's almost to a point where keepers get forgotten. It's you know, it's certainly a grassroots age. It's very much kind of everybody else gets man of the match, and you know, you can have a great game, and all of a sudden somebody pops up and scores 2 goals at the death and wins the game for the team, and it's, you know, it's very easily forgotten. But like you say, I always find it quite fun to watch those moments where the goalkeepers get the recognition that they absolutely deserve.
When you see it now, it goes in circles. Nobody wants to be a number 9 at the moment.
Yeah.
They don't want to be the 10, or they want to be the 6 or the 8 that are controlling the actual. So Casido at Chelsea, I want to be Casido. Why is that? I want to be a man at, I don't want to mention Newcastle in case it upsets you. But you've got Xhaka there now.
Yeah.
You'll find a lot of Sunderland fans wanting to be a midfield player. Now, it just goes in cycles.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden it'll turn and it'll go, Man City. How many kids want to be Edison?
Yeah.
When they saw him not just making saves, but being responsible for 8, 9 goals and assists.
Yeah.
So it is fashionable.
Yeah.
And it does come around and work that way. So at the moment, I listened to Alan Shearer the other day, I think it was yesterday before the game, and he was talking about, he said, I'm not too sure everybody in Newcastle wanted to be Jackie Milburn, they wanted to be Malcolm McDonald, they wanted to be Alan Shearer, Wyn Davis. I mean, all names that you're too young to remember some of them.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it was to be a number 9 at Newcastle. It was the ultimate.
Yeah.
And that's why Shearer still had, you know, you want the goals that he scored. But all of a sudden now, in the modern game, I might want to be one of them defenders that's come out with the ball.
Yeah.
Or I want to be the 6 and the 4 that get the ball from the goalkeeper and turn and get play going. All of a sudden, and that's where the game is fashionable.
Yeah.
But in this country, your kids, the coaches that coach the game as well, their kids have got an unbelievable opportunity when you see what's open to them via their computers, their iPod, whatever they use. They can learn the game. So I always say that's fine. But don't just let them watch, certainly. Let them see the game and explain to it why that happens, why that goes on. Because they will become sponges.
And then before I've got one more really, really interesting question that I do need to ask, which ties back to your childhood idol. But then you got involved, you know, we've edged onto it nicely there with grassroots football. You got involved heavily with EvoGK, as we can see by the top. How did that happen? What's the thinking behind that for you?
Do you know, I still can't remember how James Howard, the owner, and he rang me. Oh, this is my dinner coming in, edit. So what basically happened was James rang me and he said, look, I'm looking to form this company. So would you mind coming and doing I've seen the FA conference when you presented on that. Would you be prepared to do it? We're going to do similar. I want to get local goalkeepers, or I might even go on the instrument. So he started at Slaley Hall. And as I said to him at the time, you're going to find it difficult. It's a long way for people to come to Newcastle. Anyway, we did that. I went to Slaley Hall. I presented for him for the first time. And then I went straight off after. I couldn't stay for the weekend because my wife was running the Liverpool half marathon. And I wanted to be there. But that was the start. And since then, with James and a lot of the other coaches, we've actually built. And you look at what's available now through EvoGK, it's a great platform for kids, for coaches, parents. And we've just gradually, over the 6 years, we've introduced the women's game. You know, I helped them get Ian Wilcox, who was the Man United goalkeeping coach. I helped them get Chris Williams, who was at Man City.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we've had, for the girls, because obviously now they're a major part when you look at Newcastle, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, Durham. You know, we've got 4 women's teams very close by. So it's just been a gradual development. And if you look at the coaches that we've ended up, that have come up to the Northeast to present, all credit to James that, you know, and we've, you know, obviously I'm an ambassador for him, so I help him put things together. He still does a lot of the groundwork. And he loves it, as does his parent, his mum and dad.
Yeah.
You can't go at the beacon of light when you got a goalkeeping event on, you look up and she's there. Yeah. With all the shirts and the shorts, and she's talking to the parents. So it's a family affair. So yeah, it's been a pleasure to be part of it, and it's been great to see the way it's grown. And just today, I can't wait to see the footage. We've got James involved today. He was there, and it was just starting to blow a gale. He was there, and just like me, he had short t-shirt on. We were one goalkeeper short. Yeah. And there he was in amongst all of them. So I think he's learned and he's grown as a coach, as a person. So I think he should be rightfully proud of what he's done in the 6 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I talk with my family a lot. Is the Northeast is the home of football.
Yeah.
You know, we've got so much passion in the Northeast for football itself, for being fans, for playing football, to be part of it, and we're so privileged to be part of fan base of the biggest clubs in the country, which is part of the biggest league in the world, is phenomenal.
And this is what you've waited so long for. Can't wait for Newcastle, Sunderland, Newcastle.
And hopefully Middlesbrough next year.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you look
fingers
and
crossed.
go, having been and born and bred, I know what the Northeast means.
Yeah.
I know what it means to the Geordies, to the Wearside people, the Teesside people. It's vital. It's part of our lives.
Yeah.
And it's great to see a full, I mean, you only talked about 2 years ago, you couldn't fill Stadium of Light, you're struggling to get the big crowds. Now look where you are.
Yeah.
And all credit to, again, the owners and the staff that have brought this new coaching. I think I look at the coaches and the level of what they've brought in.
Yeah.
I know
phenomenal.
the goalkeeper coach really well, Neil Cutler. Alessandro Baccarini's gone from coach to assistant head coach. I think it's absolutely brilliant times for the Northeast.
And I think it's interesting because I see a lot of, you know, obviously as a kid brought up with the Newcastle Sunderland rivalry, and we love it. I love it. I love the banter, the camaraderie, the crack. But to see, you know, I remember we were at the Coventry playoff final, and we won, and people were celebrating like we'd won the World Cup, and it did feel like we'd won the World Cup. I'm not going to lie. And what was really fun was I remember being on YouTube watching the highlight reel, and people underneath were commenting, "Oh, look at them over celebrating." There was a lot of Coventry fans on there, and I understand the bitterness. But the irony was there was a lot of Newcastle fans on there going, "Do you know what? Let them have their moment. Let them have their moment." And I think that is the spirit of football I see in the Northeast. That's the bit that I want to see going forward. Not going back to the hooliganism of the 70s, but you know, moving forward in, you know, the Northeast being the new Manchester of football, and long may it continue. Bring it back then to that last question that I absolutely have to know the answer to. So, your childhood idols, how do you think they would fare in the modern game?
Yashin would have no problem. Again, they would have to learn the game in terms of the playing out. That's definitely, you know, people ask me that about Peter. Peter naturally goes, yeah, I could play this one game. He used to always go on the possession at the start. He thought he could play as such. He was the best ever at hitting the ball into a channel or whatever. Banks would have to learn the game. What he wouldn't have to learn is how to come and command and take crosses 8 yards out. Come and punch him to go 30 yards. Calm the whole place down. Gordon never knew how he got into position sometimes. He was a natural.
Yeah.
I said to him, did you realise, Gordon, that you've gone from there to there? He said, no, I knew. You didn't know when to stop in line with the ball.
Yeah.
So you'd get in line, then go down the line. You would actually get there and just hold yourself. And that was your big, so a bit like Peter did. He'd just say, go on, then beat me. Or Joe, put it through me. Gordon was even calmer than that. He would just go there. They had them big, long arms.
Yeah.
They'd both have to learn the attributes that you would need to be able to play out. But I think with the intelligence, the goalkeeping intelligence, the football intelligence, yeah, they could do it.
Fantastic. Eric, I could absolutely talk to you for another 4 or 5 hours, but I'm conscious that you do need to actually get some food at some point. We need to bring this to a halt. We'll have to do this again. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your knowledge with us today.
My pleasure. Good luck to everybody. I hope they enjoy.
Thanks very much, Eric.